You're listening to a podcast from the Institute for Work-Based Learning at Middlesex University. Coming up,
society has vastly changed. Have universities changed to meet those kinds of demands? We think we have, and we're bringing the rest of the university sector along with us.
Work-based learning is 20 years old. How did it all start? How has it developed over the last 2 decades? And what does work-based learning say about the way our working lives are evolving?
Hello. Jonathan Garnett, Director of the Institute for Work-Based Learning and Professor of Work-Based Knowledge at Middlesex University.
Hello, I'm Professor Carol Costley, Professor of Work-Based Learning, and I'm Head of the Work-Based Learning Research Centre at Middlesex University.
Hello, and I'm Brian Thomas. I'm the Director of the Marine Society.
Hello, I'm Max Thomas, Head of HR with Toshiba TEC.
Hi, David Williams, Director of Business and Organisational Development at the Institute for Work-Based Learning.
So that's Rhythm is a Dancer by Snap, the number one 20 years ago in September 1992. Anybody buy this single?
I think I might have done.
Also in September 1992, this happened.
The headlines at 6 o'clock. The government raises interest rates twice in one day to 15%.
The government's suspending Britain's membership of the European exchange rate mechanism, plus a bit of news that didn't quite garner as many column inches. Middlesex University pioneered work-based learning, giving all employees the opportunity to gain academic credits for their learning in the workplace. And 20 years on, here we are, work-based learning providing extraordinary impact to up to 15,000 people in all sorts of jobs and sectors, including the maritime sector. And Brian Thomas from the Marine Society, let's start by painting some pictures of people benefiting from work-based learning.
Seafarers have to learn and study in isolation. They suffer all the difficulties of social ostracization. They don't have access to the internet or resources, learning resources that others take for granted. And they have to endure the hardships of protracted periods away from home, friends, family and loved ones, but also physically, they are enduring perpetual motion and the constant noise and the relentless vibration that goes on board ships. Not ideal conditions for learning. And so that we're hugely gratified when seafarers go through and actually achieve an academic currency. And this is what work-based learning delivers for them. It delivers the academic currency and it provides the accessibility. And I think that is key to making education available to all who are intellectually and physically capable of having an education.
It's great to hear Brian talk about the impact work-based learning has had on his particular sector. To celebrate today the achievements of the huge number of people that have come through work-based learning over the years. And as you say, it's also in the financial sector, the retail sector, the construction sector. Any sector you care to name, we tend to have case studies where we can show the impact on the organisation and also on the individual. But it's a worldwide phenomenon. It's a unique approach of blended learning, bringing in the academic input that's really seen that benefit.
OK, David, and it is a celebration. So let's go back 20 years to September 1992. Jonathan Garnett, I hear you've been there pretty much from the start, and I'm told by your colleagues you're affectionately known as the grandfather of work-based learning. Are you happy with that as a title?
Not entirely. If you give me the names of the colleagues afterwards, I will speak to them.
What was the vision back on day one of this?
Work-based learning came very much from an employment department-funded research and development project, looking at the idea of high-level knowledge and skills developed for the needs of work. And it challenged the university fundamentally. How were we going to develop approaches and curricula in order to be able to work effectively with that knowledge and skills from the workplace to extend it and apply high-level critical thinking? So that the vision was all about how are we going to do that? And it is a fundamentally challenging thing for a university to undertake.
Carol Costley, you came into the organisation just a couple of years later. You'll be pleased to know nobody refers to you as the grandmother of the organisation as far as I know. What sort of organisation did you come into then in those early days?
Well, I came in 1995. It had been going for 3 years. They were just validating work-based learning as a field of study in its own right. Before then, work-based learning had emerged from independent studies and from the work of the Learning from Experience Trust. So that was the basis in which we began to develop the whole curriculum and the whole field of work-based learning and bring in other relevant aspects for it. And it was a very exciting time. Things were beginning to develop. It was a very successful programme. Each year the numbers were doubling, despite the fact we had no marketing. It was just by word of mouth. And people just found it so enhancing for themselves and for their organisations. They would tell others about it, and they would come along and do it. And we would have little slogans that we would give when we gave talks about it, like, are you experienced? You know, from the days of Jimi Hendrix, because the focus was on older learners quite a lot. That's my memory of coming along at that time.
And Jonathan, Carol paints quite an optimistic picture there, a willingness, doors opening. Did you encounter scepticism as well about this as a concept?
Absolutely, yes. The whole notion that high-level knowledge and skills was being generated through work, possibly without reference to a university at all and outside of traditional subject boundaries, was fundamentally disturbing to many colleagues within the university.
So it was internal scepticism often more than external?
Absolutely. Quite often it seemed to make perfect sense to the people in work and their managers who were really looking at the opportunity of aligning individual learning with organisational development, and that was the key thing that we were offering. But internally this involved us cutting across traditional subject boundaries.
David, there's quite a lot of pride in the room, and rightly so.
Yes, there is a lot of pride in the room, and I think developing this process over a period of time adds a lot of kudos to organisations working with the university. They like the fact that the QA reports and inspections endorse that this is a quality programme and the qualifications gained are equal to any other university qualification.
We all know that in the last 10 to 20 years, society and the global knowledge economy and all of those things has vastly changed. Have universities changed to meet those kinds of demands of different people's working lives? We think we have, and we're bringing the rest of the university sector along with us.
I'd very much like to reinforce that point. I think it's no longer sufficient for workers just to be receivers of knowledge. They have to be genuinely involved in knowledge creation of value, not just to themselves, not just to demonstrate to the university they're a clever person, but also to add value to the business enterprise that they're engaged in.
And in our survey that we've recently undertaken, 9 out of 10 of the learners that have been on the programmes say that they continue to use that learning in the workplace after the programme's finished. So it is relevant to what they're doing at work.
And so to the future, let's bring in Mags Thomas now from Toshiba TEC. Mags, how do you see your relationship with Middlesex University and the Institute for Work-Based Learning going forward from this point?
I see it very, very positively. We've been working with Middlesex Uni primarily with our existing workforce. Jonathan sort of said about people that have been with us 20 years, and it's been an absolute revelation for them. My view is, with the changing in the university funding, for individuals, I can see that we'll be working more closely in the coming years with Middlesex University on looking at a proposition not only for our existing people, but to actually offer a variety of channels into our workplace for those who no longer wish to pursue formal university accreditations or attend for a full-time degree and have a preference to get their experience whilst they're also acquiring their degree. And I think that's going to be a very high priority for us to look at.
Jonathan, you wanted to come in there.
Yes, that's a trend that we're noticing already. Work-based learning is being taken up by younger people at the outset of their professional careers who are looking at their options, and rather than choosing to do a full-time undergraduate programme, increasingly seeing the opportunity to combine work with their ongoing professional development and gain a qualification while in employment looks like a very attractive offer.
Carol Costley.
Yeah, as we're developing work-based learning within universities, we're reflecting the increasing complexity of working life, and that's how we see ourselves developing into the future.
Mags Thomas.
I think Carol hit on something that's really crucial. She mentioned about reflecting the complexities within the business world, and that's a strength that Middlesex University Work-Based Learning is trying to focus on. And I think that's going to be the key thing to continue that into the future, is keep watching what's happening outside in industry, in the wider academic field, and maintain their responsiveness to that, because that's really what every business has got to do. We've got to be resilient, we've got to be quick, we've got to be agile, and having a partner that allows that agility to be supported with the learning side is going to be very, very beneficial.
So as it's your 20th birthday, I'm going to allow you to finish with one phrase from each of you that sums up the work-based learning approach of Middlesex University. And let's start with those two who were there from the very start. First of all, Professor Jonathan Garnett, your phrase, please.
Work-based learning is about bringing university-level critical thinking to the workplace to bring about critical action. And in doing that, we've seen it change lives, we've seen it bring great improvements to organisations.
Professor Carol Costley.
Universities have got a unique expertise, there's no doubt about that. And through reflecting on people's experience, we can use that unique expertise to help them develop.
OK, that's the university perspective. Let's hear now from those working in partnership with the university. First up, from the Marine Society, Brian Thomas.
For seafarers and maritime professionals, work-based learning represents a flexible means of meeting the higher education needs in the uniquely challenging working conditions and lifestyle constraints of the sector.
And from Toshiba TEC, Mags Thomas.
University work-based learning delivered to us a solution that I didn't think was actually out there, which is to deliver something really beneficial to the business, but also hugely beneficial to the individuals.
Final word from you from the Institute, David Williams.
Work-based learning is sexy, so give me a call.
No, absolutely.
For more information on work-based learning at Middlesex University, ring 020 8411 5050 or online at www.mdx.ac.uk/beyond training. Listen out for other podcasts in this series on YouTube. Search for University IWBL channel.